I am just here doing the check over of your 2018 Honda Pioneer 1000. So I'm just going to go through some of the issues that I found with it, and then I will put together an estimate, and we can kind of go from there. Uh, Not going to lift the bike up for the mechanical issues that I found. I will tell you that at this wheel you have excess play in that wheel bearing, so that should have a wheel bearing put in it. And up on the front end, the only issue I found was both front upper ball joints have excess play in them, and I would replace those now as well. Don't think there was any other big mechanical things except for the normal stuff that is due. Nope. Okay, so you need new drive fluids, front drive fluid, rear drive fluid, engine and sub-transmission oils and oil and both the filters, because there's two oil filters. So we'll change all those as part of the service. If you want me to go into the air filter, I can. It's not due to be checked until 600 hours. My feeling on that is that it's an air filter that's used in dusty conditions. I don't really agree that they should go 600 hours without being checked. If it were mine, you're almost at 300 hours. I would be almost, depending on the cost of it, I would be almost apt just to pull the cover off, take all the screws out, take out that filter, and set it aside and put a new one in it. But of course, it depends. If it's pristine condition, then we wouldn't do that. But for sure, I would recommend at least checking it at this point. There is another little air filter. It's basically just a big piece of foam that's in under here. You can just see that poking out through. That's just for heavy stuff. I'm assuming it's to deter mice. That's just my guess. So anyway, I can take that out, and all you do with those is you just knock the heavy stuff out of them if there is any dirt. I don't imagine there's going to be a lot in there, but the more important air filter is back here at the back of the bike. Let's see. Load tested your battery. And that's going to lead to some other issues. First thing, the battery load tests probably not too bad for what it is, but it's the wrong battery for the bike, and it's undersized. So this bike is supposed to have, I think it's a GPY 16Z on it. It does not have that. It has a YTX 14, which isn't the same kind of battery, and it's not the same amp hours. It's not the same cold cranking amps as the battery that's supposed to be in this bike. And the big deal with these Pioneers, and probably most all Hondas, is that they are very sensitive to low voltages. So anytime you have a situation where you have bad connections or not enough battery power, that can result in throwing codes, and it'll throw it into safe mode. It'll make it so it won't start. It'll make it so it won't shift right, and all kinds of fun stuff. So I always make sure with Hondas, you start and you make sure that they have the right juice to begin with. They don't have the right juice, the electrical juice, they don't work right. So the battery as it is only has about 55% charge. It's putting out about the right amount of cranking amps, cold cranking amps, for what it's rated at. It's putting out just about 220 cold cranking amps. It's rated at 220 cold cranking amps, but the battery that's supposed to be in it is rated at 240, and the Wayusa battery that is supposed to be in there will actually probably give you closer to 300. So it's a much better battery than the Canadian Tire Eliminator ones. I don't know if that came with the bike or if you put that in it, but I do not recommend having that battery in this bike. That also leads me to something that I can't show you again, but I did experience it. And I have a feeling that when you had an issue maybe with it not starting, you had that issue, but it was throwing a low voltage code for the shift system and the ignition system, and there's actually 3 codes. So Honda's a little display flash isn't specific, so it can give you, it's sort of like it can give you the heading and the subheading, but it can't give you the subheading if you're thinking of it as looking at like an essay or something like that. So it can flash a certain amount, but it's not capable of fine tuning it. So in this particular instance, there's 3 different things that you could have an issue with, but they all have the same common denominator of low voltage being caused by a low voltage problem. So that leads me back to the battery, and there's another reason. That's another reason why I would recommend replacing it. Next, so that's that guy. Give me 1 second. Tested out your winch. Well, as far as I could. I can tell you the contactor works okay because I don't have a controller. I'm sure that you probably may. I'm guessing it's going to be in your truck somewhere, but the plug-in controller that goes in the socket over there, it's not in the bike, so I wasn't able to test it from there. But I can tell you that if I jump power from the battery to the terminal that activates the winch one way or the other, because that's all these 2 wires do, is bring power in from the winch switch, and just gives it a positive signal. The ground is already there in the wiring. So if you touch either one of those with power, the winch goes in and the winch goes out. So I know the contactor is okay. So I would guess that we have another little problem somewhere. It could be a blown fuse to accessory power. Whoever put in the winch brought keyed power from is where you're going to find that we have an issue with it. All right, so let's just continue on. Talked about the battery, talked about the winch contactor. So I need a controller basically to be able to finish diagnosing that part. For your light bar and all the dead switches on the dash. So I now have power to those. I'm going to disconnect it again, but I just wanted to show you that these switches all light up now. For the rock lights and the little lights like down under here, there's obviously a controller of some type. It's a remote. I don't know where it is. I don't see it in the bike, so that's something else that you would have to give me to be able to diagnose that. Not sure what every switch does, but I can tell you that they all come on. It also has a voltmeter that's built into it, which is another reason why I'm going to disconnect it when I'm done, because as you can see, I do not have the ignition switch turned on, but that is live. So I can already tell you, because I've already been through some of the wiring, that that's all connected direct to the battery, and it needs to have a relay on it and be through keyed power, because otherwise that is slowly sucking batteries dry. Next. So after I did a little bit of diagnostic, checked some fuses and things underneath, I found that, so the way somebody had to set this up was that this was the main switch, this one that's not labeled, and when you turned that switch on, that allowed power to go to the other switches, but this switch is actually faulty. So all I did was I disconnected that power from here and I put it onto the next switch, because they all have power jump to them, and now you have power at that switch. So we need a new switch here. Plus we need a relay and wire it into keyed power. So after I was able to get power to the switch, which is the second one over for your light bar, I checked that I had power at the fuse. The fuse was okay. I disconnected your little socket plug, and where before I didn't have any power at it, I now have power and I have ground and all that we need to be able to make the light bar work, but it still doesn't come on. And I can tell you that somewhere underneath all this electrical wrapping, there's some kind of other connectors that are probably, there could be something corroded there or whatever, but I would probably want to take the electrical tape off that and just check that we have power still going the rest of the way up to the light. After that, we'd know for sure that the light was junk. So there's that part. So all that stuff does work. It was just basically the fault of one little light and the fact that it's not really wired up properly. So, all right, so that's what I'm going to so for as far as an estimate goes, new battery, wire in a relay for keyed power for your accessories. I think I actually might have some of those little round switches here. I can check and see, but replace that bad switch so that it works the way the person had set it up. I need a controller to be able to do the rest of the, make sure the rest of your, like your little rock lights and all that sort of stuff work. Upper ball joints in the front, wheel bearing at the left rear wheel, new dry fluids, new oil filter, zzz, with an S, new engine oil, and take the cover off, check the air filter, test drive it, make sure you have the right amount of air in the tires. Your tires are getting a little bit worn, but these are truck style, so you can still get some more use out of those for sure. They're not wore out. And after that, whatever things that you think you're due for service, it would be all stuff that you'd want to book at another time, maybe in the fall or whatever. The bike is, we're 6 years old now. Brake fluid should have been changed by now. Engine coolant is due to be changed every 2 to 3 years, I do believe, or 5, depending on what coolant it has in it. So I'd have to look that up. Either way, you're overdue for that. The service manual says the valve check is you listen to see if the engine is noisy. But there is a valve adjustment that you can do on these. If it's starting and stopping okay, it's not stalling at stops and things like that. It doesn't have like a loud tapping noise. It's probably okay. The last one I checked at, I did a Honda Pioneer 1000 that had probably around 12,000 kilometers on it, and the valves were all within spec still, so that gives you some idea of how long you can go. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll put together an estimate, like I said, has all the stuff on it. Sorry for the long video, because just had a lot of electrical things that I wanted to go over with you. Thanks a lot.